The 49ers lose a pretty big piece, not to another NFL team, but to the NBA. Health, such an important factor for the 49ers, who will be the new head trainer, and reports about what Brandon Aiyuk might be looking for in his new contract coming at you on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We love our everydayers, and we especially love it when you smash that subscribe button. Hit the notification, the thumbs up. We love all that on YouTube. And, of course, you can subscribe everywhere you are listening to this podcast. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more with FanDuel. As playoffs wind down, sports stop sporting just as much as we like them to sometimes. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right. Some new reports and notes about what Brandon Aiyuk might be looking for, Croc. But there's something a little bit more important, as crazy as that might sound, for the 49ers to get done before training camp. Because when the players hit the field, they've got to have a full training staff ready to go. And this is one that nobody saw coming. And this is not even one that I thought you would have to deal with in the NFL. But the 49ers have lost their vice president of player health and performance, Ben Peterson, to the Atlanta Hawks. So the Atlanta Hawks pulling away a very important piece to the 49ers training staff, the head trainer. He's, according to Tom Pelissero, this report over the weekend, and well-regarded in San Francisco, according to Pelissero. Peterson oversaw athletic training, functional performance, nutrition, and strength and conditioning since 2019. And do you remember, Croc, going back to 2019? And remember, there was that 2018 season with a whole bunch of injuries, and the 49ers changed training staffs, and we thought that must be it. It's the medical staff, it's the trainers, it's their fault. That's why the 49ers have had all these injuries. Then they come back in 2019, had a Super Bowl run, first year with Ben Peterson. 2020, whole bunch of injuries again. And do you remember what we all went through? It was like, oh, we got to fire the new staff too. They stink. And so I don't know if it's injury luck. I don't know how much it matters what your training staffs are doing. But I know last year, if it was luck or not, the 49ers were a very healthy team. And it was a big part of them going to the Super Bowl. Brock Purdy coming off of what he was coming off of, and he didn't have any injuries all last year, was ready to go and played all the way through the Super Bowl. Christian McCaffrey, there was a couple of injuries here and there. Trent Williams had a little thing. Deebo Samuel was nicked up and missed some time, right? But overall, the 49ers were probably way ahead of the curve as far as injuries last year. And if they're going to go win a Super Bowl, they've got to be on that side of things again. I don't know how important the head trainer is, Croc, but I know it's not nothing. And especially it's not nothing if other franchises in other sports are stealing your guys away. So how important is it to you that the 49ers get this hire right and get this hire done soon for a new head trainer? And are they put way behind by losing their, I guess is the best part of the season to lose the trainer because you get 6 weeks off. So maybe that's why something like that happens now. Like this is like the NFL draft season for trainers. But they got to have a head training staff and a head trainer in place before they come back to camp in a few weeks.
Yeah. So when you say that the head trainer, the head guy, right? I'm trying to figure out which guy exactly that is. You know, I remember going back to my days with the Jets, and you have your trainers that are in the gym with you, right? The guys that are lifting, and he has his assistants. And then there's a guy over them where he's kind of like the doctor. You don't see him in like sports or team attire. You see him with kind of this suit on, but he's kind of like the main guy. Is that the guy that the 49ers are losing? Or are they losing a guy that's typically in the weight room as the head, like weight training guy and the guy that puts everything in place in the sense of, you know, how they're going to lift and work out? Because, you know, when you think of like a trainer in, let's say, high school football, it's someone that helps, like, you know, tape ankles. And if a guy is cramping, they run on the field and help, right? But that guy in the NFL is very important because he's really more like a doctor. Is that the guy that they're losing?
It's not the team doctor for sure, but this Ben Peterson, and maybe I'll look it up right now, but I don't have his exact. He might have some letters after his name, and he might have, he might be a doctor of something, but it's not the doctor, but it is the person who oversees all of the workouts and stuff, according to what Pelissero had said here. So, I mean, he's vice president, he's a VP, right? So vice president of player health and performance. So he oversaw athletic training, functional performance, nutrition, and strength and conditioning. So I don't know how involved personally he is. I don't think he's squirting water bottles in people's mouths on game day, but he oversees, I think, the performance part of it, the weight part of it, the non-physician part of it, and probably works hand in hand with the team physician on all of the health and medical things with the players on the team. And it's Peterson's job to get the guys who are deemed healthy enough to work out or rehabbing to get them back onto the field and going by what the doctor told them, whatever their ailment is. That's the way.
It's a huge job, right? And it doesn't just start. I think a lot of times we think of the weight room, guys, lifting weights and then they're running and they're doing sprints and, oh man, like, this guy pulled a hamstring, like who is the head trainer, right? But they got a whole program that they have to put together. Some things are very specific to certain players. Each player might have different things that they need to be putting more of an emphasis on. Like, these guys are definitely in charge of make sure that these guys are the most prepared to be on the field. And it doesn't just stop with weight training, running sprints, their conditioning, putting together the plan for OTAs and the different phases that you have there, but also nutrition. I remember having to meet with the guys for nutrition. They took my body fat percentage. All right, Croc, you are at 11% body fat. We need you to get under 10%. This is how you're going to do it. They put together a plan with that. That came together with my meals. They told me how I need to structure my meals. They also had post-workout shakes ready and available to me. So as soon as I came off the field from a workout, I had a shake sitting there with my name on it. And again, they didn't just do that for me. They did it for all guys on the roster. So this is a guy that is very important. And I think filling that role is definitely very important. I think the Atlanta Hawks are happy the timing of this. They have the entire offseason to get things going. They got summer league basketball coming up, getting guys in the group. He definitely doesn't have to oversee as many guys. But for the 49ers, I'd say it's probably a little bit less than ideal. But they may have a guy that has been on that staff for a long time that may be ready to step into that next, step up in the job. And I think we've seen that with the 49ers, maybe not so much in the training staff, but definitely coaches, right? They've done a lot of promoting within. They may do that same thing with the training staff.
Yeah, interesting. We'll see if they do promote within, if someone's been prepped and primed for this job with the 49ers from inside the organization. And yeah, Ben Peterson is someone you could call doctor, even though he's not a medical doctor necessarily. He got his PhD and in applied exercise physiology from the University of Minnesota. He had his bachelor's from Northwestern, spent 3 years as a grad research assistant, then worked at P3 Performance, which was a data-driven approach to understanding athlete movement and development for performance optimization. So it does say that he's also into analytics as well as the performance and the training side of things. So he was also the director of research and analytics for Catapult, which is a global category leader in elite sports technology. And there you go. So
those are the little sports bra looking things that you're seing guys wearing.
Oh yeah,
and they have they have all the track. I mean, they track everything. Your reps, your heart rate. They're monitoring that, the speed that you're running. Those things are tracking a lot of data for these players. And when you think about being your optimal self, right, being able to get the best performance out of a guy, and maybe even push him if you see areas of where he potentially slacking off. You have these guys that are more analytical, looking over those things. I think that's an important part of a team potentially being healthier and making a deep playoff run.
That's a hell of a resume. So Niners are going to have a tough time finding a guy with a resume that looks that good. And I can see why a team would want to try to hire that person away. Ben Peterson heading to the Atlanta Hawks. How big of an impact will that make for the 49ers? I really have no idea, but I do know that health and all of that, nutrition and training is a pretty important thing to an NFL athlete. So we'll see what the 49ers do to replace Ben Peterson. Hopefully they don't have to replace Brandon Aiyuk. They're going to have to find a trainer before camp. Aiyuk might not be ready to go before camp, though. The latest reports on what Brandon Aiyuk is specifically looking for from the 49ers in a contract, specifically those guarantees, next. This episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. I love sports. Croc loves sports. I know we all love sports, and we never want them to stop. But, playoff season winding down in the NBA, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like maybe we have wanted them to every single day. You still got Major League Baseball, of course, every single day, but FanDuel is keeping it a little bit more interesting this summer because all you have to do is open the FanDuel app and dream up bets anytime you're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers, not just new customers, all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. All you got to do is head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most of your summer. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, Croc. So we got a little report here from let's see, who did the report actually come from? I'm looking at profootballrumors.com, who always sources their reports. And there's obviously been an ongoing thing with so this is a report that came from Adam Schefter on a recent Pat McAfee show appearance. And he was talking about what's going on with Brandon Aiyuk, that the 49ers want him back. And I think we've talked about some of these things that, look, everyone in the national media wants a piece of this story. The 49ers are a big draw, and there's not much news going on in the NFL. And Schefter has said what we've always said all along. Niners want him back. They're trying to figure out the money. They're a little bit apart in that. And then Mike Girardi of the Boston Sports Journal said that Brandon Aiyuk specifically is aiming to mid to upper $80 million range in his guarantees, and that potentially could be the holdup right now. And we have used the Amon-Ra St. Brown contract, Croc, as sort of our closest comparison to what we think Brandon Aiyuk might potentially get, right? Am I misstating your stance? I feel like that's a pretty close to what the Aiyuk market is Amon-Ra St. Brown's contract that he signed this offseason. His had a total of $77 million in guaranteed money. So Brandon Aiyuk, according to Mike Girardi, is trying to go above that 77 into the $80 million range for his guarantees. Now, all of those guarantees in Amon-Ra St. Brown's contract weren't all guaranteed at signing. A lot of them pretty easily attainable, but so pretty close. But basically, a short way of saying it is Aiyuk's trying to get more than what Amon-Ra St. Brown got.
And that's the interesting part too, right? I mean, you talk about some of these contracts, and shout out to Taylor Barrett in the chat, and he's talking about how, hey man, these contracts, especially the amount per year, aren't quite what people are reporting. And he says right here, we'll read it. Said that Amon-Ra St. Brown is really more like 3-year contract, averaging $21 million per year. And we talked about that, right? Like what's guaranteed, what's not. There's some kind of fluff numbers in there, but ultimately the number that matters most is guaranteed amount. And how do they go about attaining that guaranteed? There were things with Jimmy Garoppolo's contract. Hey, matter of fact, let's go back even further than that. Colin Kaepernick. And I remember he had some injury guarantees in there. And if he was on the roster past a certain date, then the next year was fully guaranteed. So that goes into the guaranteed amount that some of these guys are getting as well. So I think with Brandon Aiyuk, that probably is some of the holdup. The $30 million per year that gets reported, who cares about that? It's that guaranteed amount so that they can't just do away with you after 2 years and all of a sudden, well, I've ran out of guaranteed money. I mean, why did Christian McCaffrey get a new contract? Partly because, hey, I deserve a bump in pay. 49ers utilized me. I should be getting $19 million a year. But also, he was running out of guarantee. He didn't have any more guaranteed money. Deebo Samuel. I think that's a big reason why he's still kind of on the 49ers this season. Obviously, a really good football player, but also partly how much money he's owed. And I think going into next offseason, that's the one that's a big question mark for Deebo Samuel because he no longer will have a lot of guaranteed money. So shooting for, close to 80 million guaranteed, depending on how they structure it, that probably is the biggest holdup because the money per year, I don't think that matters as much.
And even the Brandon Aiyuk contract, remember when that was reported, it was like 2 years, 19 mil per extension. It's like, wow, okay, that's blowing the running back market out of the water where he was already the top paid running back in the league. And then you look at how the contract was actually structured. It's actually like, no, okay, they give him a little bump here, added some years. The years they added could probably just get lopped off anyway. So for sure it wasn't a 2-year, $19 million contract extension as the agent threw out there. But the agents, have the ear of the Schefters and the Ian Rappaports, and they want to get their number out first. And so that's the number they get out there to try to make the contract look better. And usually that's the first report is the one that people remember. And so you go look at the structure and you can really see what it actually is. And, McCaffrey's, it's, 4-year, $15.5 million. He's locked in for a couple of years, but they can get out of that contract and for sure can get out of it in the fourth year of what he has left in his contract. We know that Deebo now, basically post June 1st, the Niners can get out of that contract and probably will have to get out of that contract with a trade this coming off season before Deebo hits the last year of his deal because there's not many more guarantees left on there. And they're going to, have to potentially make a tough decision there if they do sign Brandon Aiyuk and keep him over Deebo Samuel, unless they can find a way to keep them both together one more year after this year. So, yeah, the contracts they're so convoluted with where the workout numbers are coming from now and what the guarantees are and what are really guarantees. And, 80 million guarantee actually becomes 35 million actually guaranteed. But then in a couple of years, there's going to be a roster bonus where that hits. And if that hits and he's still on the roster, then there's actually 20 more guaranteed, but that's his contract for the year anyway. So of course he was going to make that if he's on the roster. So it gets really convoluted when you're looking at these contracts. And that's why you need an agent. And that's why there's lawyers involved. And that's why the contracts are probably this thick. Phone book is what I'm putting up there for those who are not watching on YouTube. Like it's kind of crazy how this all goes. And so we try to learn as much as we can about these contracts, but it would really make your head spin. It's a full-time job covering actual contracts and obviously negotiating these contracts. A whole team of people putting these together on both sides, with the agent side and the team side. So that being said, as it was put in the chat from Surfer Bob Hair Model, does he want to be here? That's the question. Does he want to be with the 49ers? Do the 49ers want him around? They're going to figure out this deal. They're just going to have to, play a little tug of war until deadlines make deals, Croc, right? Deadlines make deals. We've learned this a lot over the last few seasons. So training camp is the next big deadline. Does he get it done within the week of training camp, a couple days before, a couple days after? That's probably the expectation from me right now. If you go through a week of training camp and he's still not signed, maybe it's a little bit more difficult negotiation. The Niners might be in trouble there, and who knows? Maybe they don't like each other as much as they need to get an $80 million guaranteed contract done.
I think that's the big part right there. Maybe they don't like each other as much as they need to, and I think Brandon Aiyuk really loves the 49ers. I don't know if that feeling is mutual. I remember hearing someone say, in every relationship, in every marriage, someone loves one person more than the other. I tell my wife all the time I love her more than she loves me. But actually, I don't know. She has to love me a lot now that I'm bald-headed.
Who's also your agent, by the way?
Yeah, that's my agent as well. But I think in this scenario, I think Brandon Aiyuk loves the 49ers more than they love him. They love him, but it's not unconditional. It's like they love him. Man, we love you. We love everything about you. But we don't love you that much. And I think he loves them in the sense of, hey man, I do everything. You guys help develop me. I have this great relationship. I got this great rapport with my quarterback. I just want to get paid this amount. Now, it doesn't feel like they want to pay him whatever's being reported right now.
Some breaking news in the chat, Croc, that we're going to have to address next. And speaking of wide receivers, a couple of them the 49ers drafted all signed. 49ers draft picks all signed up and ready to go for training camp. We'll get into all of that and your questions in the chat next. So according to the chat, Croc, there's some reports here. Viet Ta says that Lombardi is reporting that Brandon Aiyuk's actually in town currently. He's not working out at whatever that Little League baseball field was. It looked like he was running routes on social media not too long ago. He's in town. Maybe something could be. Maybe he's signing as we speak, Croc, right now, hanging out with John Lynch, John Lynch's buddy that he went to his wedding, and his agent, Ryan Williams, and Parag Marathe. Maybe Jed's hanging out too. Who knows? Maybe Kyle's all there. Maybe they're going to have a quick trip to Cabo after they sign this contract, Croc. Maybe a deal's imminent. Is Brandon Aiyuk in town? Somebody go to a fancy steakhouse in Los Gatos and let us know if you see Brandon Aiyuk there with John Lynch.
You know, there was that video that Brandon Aiyuk put out about how much he's loving life and how blessed he is. Where is that house? Because if it's in Santa Clara or in the Santa Clara County, then I think
that's a good point. If his home is here where he lives and works, then he's been there a lot.
Yeah. I mean, this is a guy that, clearly he has a child, he has a family. I don't think he just has them in an extended stay in the Bay Area. I think, they're in a home. And some of these guys have multiple homes, but he's not far from where he grew up, kind of Rockland area, Reno. I know he spent some time between both of those spots. So I'd imagine that if he's in Santa Clara, it's because he lives in Santa Clara. Now, are they saying they spotted him at the facility? Because that's different.
I do not know. I didn't hear the report. It was relayed through the chat. Apparently something that David Lombardi of The Athletic reported. I assume that's the Lombardi that Viet Ta is speaking of here. So we'll find out. We'll find out if Brandon Aiyuk, if he is in town, if him being in town has anything to do with him signing a contract. I go to a lot of places in a lot of towns and don't sign multi-million-dollar contracts, Croc. So we'll see if that ends up happening. But it would be good news. And it's good news if he's in town talking with the San Francisco 49ers. Always get those reports, though, with these kind of deals. Oh, so-and-so's here and so-and-so's there. Remember the one? What was the one with? Was it Richard Sherman's at the airport? And it's like, it wasn't even Richard Sherman, but someone took a photo and it was making his rounds. It's like, oh, Richard Sherman's at the airport. He must be signing the deal. And it was like, that's not even Richard Sherman, man.
I think there was one with Deebo Samuel too, around the time it was contract talks where he was spotted at an airport and going to Santa Clara or something like that. But again, these guys do live there, even if they maybe have a condo somewhere else.
Right. Look, judging by what I saw from Aiyuk's house, was it the one where he was catching passes with the palm trees and stuff? Is that the one you're talking about?
Nah, it was like a backyard with, he had a one of those big trampolines or something, and he was like, oh, I feel so blessed, and he's kind of looking around. It did not look like Santa Clara. It looked like something more like a Reno or kind of vibe to it. So,
yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. If it's the house that I saw, it didn't dawn on me as something that you would see, in the South Bay. There's a lot of space too, and that's the most difficult thing to come by. Although, and he'll be able to afford something pretty big after this contract. He had a lot of money before. He's going to have a different tax bracket now when he signs this next contract for north of $100 million total, well over. So
real quick, I know sometimes we throw these numbers out and we're talking about amount per year. I do think they put something in the new CBA where you can change how you want your money kind of allocated to you. But over the years prior to this new CBA, not quite sure exactly how that works, you made all of your money within the first, the regular season. So, used to be 16 weeks, now 17 games. You make, so if he's, let's say it looks like he's supposed to be making, I don't know, $28 million per year. He's making $28 million over 17 games. So you divide that, and then obviously you have to take taxes out. I mean, that is a huge payday every single week. Some get paid weekly, some get paid bi-weekly. But I mean, you're talking about if you're getting paid weekly after taxes, $400,000 hitting the account every month. I mean, that's $500,000, $600,000 hitting the account every month. That ain't no chump change.
No, that's no chump change at all. And getting that signing bonus up front too. So you get that little jump start as well when you sign that contract. And I think some of the things that we've seen with teams and players is when the sign, because you know the signing bonus, you think of it and you're like, oh, he walked in, signed a contract, they gave him a check for $30 million or whatever it was, right? But I think that teams are like, well, we don't want to just throw $30 million of cash on you right now today. Can we spread this out? And I think some players like that. Some players don't, depending on how much that money is. You almost kind of have to at times. The 49ers, just as far as pure cash, are I would have to guess, are spending as much straight up cash on their roster, on their players, as any team in the NFL. Going back to the Garoppolo deal, right? That was the biggest contract in the league. And then they did the biggest defensive contract in the league with Bosa. They've signed star players every offseason since 2018. And
D4, Richard Sherman got a big chunk of money.
Yeah.
They have Eric Armstead's contract. Like, that was big at the time. They definitely have not been shy to fork out a lot of money to some really good football players.
Yeah, and even the biggest one's going to come up next year. So, like, actual checks, I would love to see how big some of those checks are that they're signing, with signing bonuses and weekly pay, because those are rather large. The 49ers are shelling out cash to some of these players. And remember, in the early parts of this regime, the 49ers were kind of front loading stuff a little bit more. Like they were giving the money up front. It wasn't all this backload. Now they're getting a little bit tighter with the cap and starting to backload more stuff and throw more void years out there. But they are they're spending quite a lot of cash. So it's not that they're not afraid to spend money is kind of what I'm getting at.
They're not. They just got to want you enough. They got to want you to the amount that you want. And we saw the situation with DeForest Buckner, whatever that was, where it didn't quite turn out the way I think we all expected that situation to turn out. Like, if I would have told you after the 2019 season, hey man, DeForest Buckner, he won't be a 49er next year. Like, man, get out of here, right? Like, nobody, that would be like the worst troll tweet ever. Then all of a sudden you trade away your like defensive MVP of the team. Like, he's just gone. And he was everything leader, didn't miss games, super healthy, productive, all pro caliber player. Like, he was all of that. And they shipped him out because I don't think that they were able to get as close to the way that they wanted to structure the contract as they would have liked.
Yeah.
And again, it similarly feels like that kind of situation. If everything that is reported is true, of course.
The DeForest Buckner contract's a really good example of just the business side of things. It's like both sides really loved each other, right? They liked each other enough to get a deal done. But then business got in the way. And it's like, Buckner's like, I want this much, and I want it structured this way for me. And the Niners like, man, but we could give you this much and structured like this. And the agent's like, well, there's some other teams that might be willing to do this. And John's just like, man, if you really find the thing you like more, go find it. You better bring us back a first-round pick. And the business from those franchises, being at least the Indianapolis Colts, were like, okay, we'll give you that. We'll give him the money, how he wants it structured, and we'll give the Niners a first-round pick. And the Niners like, we have to take that. And so, there's not going to be the trade aspect of it, even though that's what everyone likes to talk about. I don't think there's any trade happenings at all. I'm sure some teams are calling the 49ers, but I just don't think there's any reality to a trade actually happening with Brandon Aiyuk before the season. I think the 49ers next year, it's going to get really interesting in the offseason, and we're going to have a lot of trade conversations that offseason. It's all about if they can get a deal signed, or if they're going to play hardball with Aiyuk and he's going to play hardball with them, and they're going to say, okay, you're under contract, so play on it, and we'll see what happens next offseason. We got a franchise tag if we need it, and it gets a little bit more difficult, and then maybe feelings are hurt. You really don't want it to go down that path through the 49ers, especially if you really, really want Brandon Aiyuk in. But if you're okay with being without Brandon Aiyuk in 2025 and beyond, you can play hardball. And you've got the leverage of him already being under contract and the franchise tags if you need him to. So the 49ers do have leverage that they don't have to cave. And again, that's why I'd be somewhat surprised if they were far apart already and hadn't signed the deal before OTAs and all that. June 23rd, June 24th, signing a deal then would seem kind of odd because aren't guys on vacation and like deadlines make deals? This would be a weird time to sign a contract, I would think. Why would this be the moment they finally came together?
And I'm not seeing that happening. If they do come together, it'll be pretty much like right when training camp starts.
That's what I would think. But maybe not. We could be surprised by this one. So, and it'll be the earliest the 49ers have signed any of those big time contracts.
I think you laid out the timeline on a previous episode.
Oh, the earliest one was either Warner or Kittle, and it was like July. It was late July, and then another one was like right at the cusp of training camp starting, and the rest have been after training camp. Obviously, Bosa was way after training camp. By the way, I wanted to mention it. It's the most non-news thing that happens, thank God, in the NFL news calendar, Croc. I hated the old way. I love my favorite part of the new CBA is the rookie contracts being slotted, and there's not those weird contract holdouts, first round picks. We saw it with Michael Crabtree back in the day, right? Especially those quarterback contracts and holding out into camp as rookies. It's ridiculous. All the 49ers draft picks have officially inked. Ricky Pearsall was the last one. They got it done. All the 49ers draft picks signed now, ready to go for camp, Croc. Maybe some big opportunities for Pearsall if no Aiyuk's there on day one of camp too, by the way.
He's going to get a lot of reps. I remember guys getting a lot of reps when D. Milliner wasn't there because he was holding out, trying to get his contract that was kind of slotted, but he wanted the money a certain way. And he got his money how he wanted it, had missed that entire time. The day he signed on the dotted lines, he was inserted into the first group over everybody that had already been there.
Wow.
Shout out to D. Milliner.
Shout out to D. Milliner. Where did he go? He never even played for another team. That was one of the shortest lived first round picks ever.
It was a very odd situation. I think he played like 2.5 years for the Jets, got released like mid-year in that third year, and was never to be heard from again.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
$12 million guaranteed, though. He made out pretty good.
Back in those days for those. Well, I mean, the money's gotten bigger now, but like, yeah, those contracts were different for those first round picks back in the day. I'm glad that is not the case anymore. All right, Croc, we'll find out maybe tomorrow. Brandon Aiyuk will be signed. I'd be surprised by it, but if he does, we will have it all covered for you as we do every day here at Locked On 49ers. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you listen to your podcast. Hit me and Croc up on Twitter at BD Peacock, at Crocky209. If there's a subject, a topic, a question you have for the show, or drop a question in the YouTube comments. Croc and I back tomorrow right here, Locked On 49ers.